When we look at the vast majority of black people, we are not looking at scholars. Let's just call it what it is. The fact that the term educated lame in the community even exists tells you we're not dealing with scholarly people. And the few who are scholarly, are shunned for being so, shamed for being so. We just have to assume that these people indeed belong to the mud seal. But there's a fate that's even worse than that. And trying to explain something like this to a bunch of mud sealers is, it's a fruitless task. With Biden in office and with immigration letting up, basically, many of these Negroes, unbeknownst to them, are finished. And Dr. Umar Johnson actually pointed this out. You go back to his I like to call him his videos before he went crazy, because it goes without saying that nigga crazy. It's something wrong with Umar Johnson. But he has, I believe in taking the message and leaving the messenger. And this brother was able to point out certain things that I'm just now starting to see come true, and are indeed true. I believe it when he says that, with the rise of immigration, with the rise of illegal immigrants, there was a time, black people, that you were part of the mud seal. You were part of the permanent underclass. And many of you languished in that position. You bojangled, you buck danced, you skin and grin, you cooned and buffooned, and you pickaninnied, step and fetch it, and shined with a big coon grin on your face, to no avail. To no avail. With all that fake outrage you have, you never directed that outrage towards the miseducation of your youth, the systemic miseducation of your youth. Perhaps you was too busy chasing tail. Perhaps you were too busy pulling drive-bys on each other, making drug deals. Just doing the nigga shit that you niggas do. Perhaps you were too busy doing it. Perhaps some of you were too busy working 2-3 jobs that you have to sustain your life, because so many of you to this day have children out of wedlock. Multiple kids, knowing that you can't afford them, even with your government assistance. But now a new problem awaits you shines. And it's these immigrants. And Dr. Umar Johnson pointed out that the white man no longer has any need for the black man's labor. And right beneath your eyes, shine, you are being replaced with, for the vast majority, Latinos. No doubt Latinos first and foremost. But even not only that, but foreigners from the Middle East, foreigners from South Asia, and basically all throughout Asia. So you're being replaced by Latinos. You're being replaced by Asians. And with the vice president being Asian, you know, they're up here floodgating. She's about to floodgate this place with a bunch of Hindustanis. And you're being replaced by Middle Easterners. All groups of people who have been historically known to not fuck with you like that. People who historically have shown their natural ass when it comes to your black ass. People who have gone out of their way to come into your community, into your dangerous community, which I still don't see how they've managed, but nonetheless have gone into the heart of your communities and have bled you dry of your wealth and your resources. That if you Negroes had any kind of incentive, anything similar to that of Black Wall Street, you could have actually had something strikingly similar to that of a community had you only devoted that money to yourselves. But the thing about you Negroes is that you hate yourselves. And that's what I mean when I say that you Negroes are indeed your own worst enemy. Sooner or later, Negro, you're gonna run into that factor of you Negroes being your own worst enemy is going to run into you either directly or indirectly. Be it directly where you're up here killing yourselves, or indirectly where you up here working for some Arab, if you're lucky enough to get a job from him, while he's exploiting the very resources and the women of your community. Because you won't, it'll never dawn on you, but someone could look at that and say, well, how did that Arab even manage to get in? How is it that you have mosque, knowing mosque are Islamic places of worship in the heart of Whitehaven? Let's just use my city for example. My former city for example, rather. And Asians selling you Negroes fried chicken and fucking it up, and I mean in the worst way, and yet still getting business. What do you call that? I got a name for that. That's called the white man's ice, or in this case the Asian man's ice is always colder. They can come into your community selling you food that don't even taste good, knowing that whatever they doing with that fried chicken, they fucking it up. Calling themselves selling you your own foods, or foods that you're historically known for, like soul food. I hear Organic talk about it all the time. You got Mexicans out there selling Negroes soul food. How does this happen? Do you honestly think, as a black person, that you could go into East Los Angeles and sell Mexican people Mexican food? That's not going to happen. But somehow they can manage to come into your community and not only sell you their food, but sell you your own food. I think I've hit my coup de grace as far as me rambling and everything. Because, I look at this planet and, I just say to myself, there isn't much of anything worthwhile salvaging, really, if you ask me. I mean, the only thing that it seems to me that I can do is, again, stay prayed up and stay ready so I ain't got to get ready. And like I said, for me, if I'm considered an educated lame, be the best educated lame, be the goddamnest educated lame that I can be. Get trained up in as much of IT and engineering as I humanly possibly can. Because it stands to reason that in these schools that they did that for a reason, and they did that so that even if you had the potential to compete, by the time you figured that out, it would be too late. You would be off falling for one of the vices of the community. With luck, if you were fortunate and lucky enough, you'll be able to play basketball well enough, or even football well enough for some local football recruiter of some university to take your ass in and, exploit your ass, and, whatever happens to you happens to you. Hey, if you graduate, cool. If not, oh well. If you get hurt, oh well. And unfortunately, that is the song and the story of you Negroes for the vast majority. That the vast majority of you are gonna flunk school, drop out of school due to teenage pregnancies, due to just fucking up and flunking all throughout school because you had incompetent teachers who ain't got no business being there. That's why I said the education system is a joke, and I'm so glad that I didn't become a teacher, because that's just the kind of bullshit that I would have to deal with on a day in, day out basis. I don't want nothing to do with that bullshit. I always knew that the school system was a fucking joke. I mean, I've been out of school for some 17 years. If we're gonna talk about high school and college, some 7 years, and I feel smarter than ever. I feel more educated than ever since I've been out of school. So it just goes to show just how worthless many of these colleges are, and why, from a worldwide standpoint, no one takes American colleges, even serious like that. And the vast majority of you Negroes are just gonna find yourselves getting caught up out in them streets and all that bullshit that comes along with it, getting caught up in that baby mama drama. But with these immigrants flooding in, I mean, if the black community, as if the black community, or the matriarchy as I should call it, didn't have already enough problems as is, with all that gang banging, with all that drug dealing, with all, like I said, all that baby mama drama, with all those single parent house homes, Section 8 welfare housing, all these things that were going on for America's original mud sealers. You have new mud sealers coming from shithole countries, as Trump put it during his earlier years in office. And they want the bag too. And the jobs and the resources and even a portion of the wealth that could have been in your hands had you been a tad bit more organized is going to go into theirs. And I know this because I've seen this firsthand. Just take a tour through my city through my city, Memphis. It's a dog eat dog world out there. And for educated lames such as myself, it seems to me that this is clearly going to be a one man, it's a one man show for me, a one man mission where I have to compete against all these motherfuckers. Fortunately, some of them aren't as smart as others. I just have to worry about the ones that, again, I'm not even within their reach because, like I said, they got certain skills that I'm trying to break into already lock, stocked, and barreled. But see, as much, the warrior's path is a lonely path. And as heartbreaking as it is, because, I watch TV sitcoms from the 90s sometimes, and I'm particularly looking at Family Matters. And, it really just shows what a healthy, semi-functional black family looks like. And, that really hits me dead in the heart because growing up, that's something that, just by the default of seeing that as a kid, that's something that I grew up expecting and wanting. That I would run into my lady luck, the love of my life, and we would raise a healthy family with healthy kids, and I would provide for them. I mean, who doesn't want that? And I would raise them with similar ethics and morals so that they'd be able to get out here in society and actually be contribute to society instead of, a destroyer of it and getting themselves, caught up in the prison industrial complex. So it can be very heartbreaking sometimes when I look, when I get this blast in the past, scenes, scenes from this sitcom that I haven't seen literally since I was a little kid. Because by the time Family Matters ended, they ended in 1998. So I was practically at that point, I was Steve's age or Steve Urkel's age and Laura's age by the time they ended, and they was already grown at that point. And they started, back in 1989, that's when they were teenagers. So I was a little kid when, so to me, this was like childhood type stuff for me. And I'm looking at things that I haven't seen since I was a little kid. And I'm 35 now. But with that expectation in mind and versus reality, and me encountering the things that I had to see, endure, and literally had to escape from, coming from the community, I would say that, it would seem to me that whatever comes Blackistan's way is, punishment that is completely fitting for it. And to me, it makes absolutely no sense, like I said, after seeing what I've seen and enduring what I had to endure, to bring, for one, looking for a woman who's even, gives me the time of the day. Because, Tito said that you do have some black men who are actually professionals, but when it comes to dealing with scraggladags, they have to change up their whole, they literally have to assume this facade as Thuggo, basically a Pookie and Ray Ray, and they go out of their way to hide the fact that they're a blue collar, a 9 to 5 type dude, that they on some drug dealing type shit, all at the behest of these ghetto hyena hood rat females. I mean, it kind of reminds me of House Party, the very first one, where you had the light skinned nigga. I think his name was like Kid Play or something like that, and he was this, highly intelligent, basically a Steve Urkel type dude, coming from this prominent black family or whatnot, on some basically like a Carlton Banks, that type of dude who's, halfway on his, basically got half his foot halfway through the door, as far as any kind of Ivy League school, because I think they were in California somewhere, so he was basically, halfway through the door of like any kind of Pepperdine or Stanford. Nerdy as hell, geeky as hell, straight A's. And he ended up somehow joining, I don't want to say befriending. Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and say befriend. He ended up befriending, basically this dude who was like basically a Pookie and Ray Ray. And somehow they had something of an identity crisis, or not an identity, a mistaken identity, where they switched up their identity. So his reputation, the nerdy, dorky, light skinned nigga, ended up having the reputation of the dark skinned thug nigga. And that there was some dark skinned female who was basically crushing on him, but they was in the restaurant, and somehow somehow it's been a while since I've seen House Party, but somehow the truth came out, and her, the level of disgust that you could see in her once she realized that this dude was indeed not this thug ass nigga who was just, who just was basically an alpha dog who's just very presence commanded fear and respect even amongst the hardest of thug niggas and drug dealers at this at this school. And I mean that's black women for you in a nutshell. Anything short, anything that fails to meet the mark of a Pookie, of a Ray Ray, of anything that's resembling coming out of that hood, whether it's a crackhead nigga, a drug dealing nigga, or a thug nigga, a 12 gauge mic, a 12 clip mic. Especially if you were an educated lame, anything short of a criminal, anything short of a Tupac, anything resembling a Carlton Banks and a Steve Urkel is you're less than a man to them. And like I said, mind you, this is pinpoint. A 17-year-old kid basically having to start his high school career all the way the fuck over. And yeah, speaking of which, he's a dime a dozen, because even though, I graduated high school when I was 18, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm pretty sure it was some grown ass niggas in that school, in that ghetto ass school that I went to. 20, 21, 22. Going to high school. When at the traditional age of 22, you're supposed to be graduating college. I mean, the closest thing that I come to a Pookie and Ray Ray when it comes to my record is the fact that I was late when it came to graduating college on a traditional level. Because instead of graduating at 22, I graduated at 28. Oh, excuse me, 29. I was 29 when I graduated. Ironically enough, that was the same age my mother was when she graduated. But hell, at least that was college. At least I graduated college at 29 instead of graduating high school at 29. Come on now. But this is what, and I mean, to me at this point, it's not a solvable problem. This is a dynamic. It is an insolvable dynamic. One that someone like me had to crawl, had to observe, had to notice. I was fighting this shit and I didn't even realize who my enemies were. I didn't even realize the chess pieces against I was fighting. All I could see was the dynamic that they were putting out for me. Because all I knew was that I'm gonna get the best of an education that's available to me, and I didn't know how competitive I was supposed to have been at the time. I just knew that I need to be at least competitive enough so that I can graduate on time and go to college. And I didn't know what I was gonna do in college. I was just in college. I was undecided for that whole semester of my first year there, or my first semester. I was probably undecided my second semester as a freshman. So I didn't know what to compete in. It's like all I knew was the skills that I needed, the education that I needed to so that I could at least matriculate into my local university with very uncompetitive ACT scores. Good enough to get in, but good enough to compete? Hell no. Hell no. A 20 on the ACT and a 3.0 grade point average. Good enough to get in, good enough to matriculate, but good enough to compete with, again, elite performing whites and Asians? Hell no. So, again, I'm going to just say this much, and I think I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Going back to that, even being in the presence of that, like I stated in the last video, as far as me making the foolish decision of trying to pay off the rest of my dad's mortgage so that I can claim this house for myself should anything hit the fan. And it's not as if I would just go back to Memphis to live. To me, it was the whole idea would be like I said, if shit hit the fan, I always got somewhere to go back to. And even doing that is just foolhardy. I'd rather look elsewhere and invest in that real estate as far as buying a house, because at least there I won't be in a war zone. I go back to Memphis, I'd be like, yeah, I escaped poverty. Yeah, I escaped and defeated miseducation. Yeah, I defeated potential homelessness, and like I said, poverty. But I got a whole new litany of problems because, again, I'm smack dab in the middle of a war zone that I went out of my way to escape. Doesn't make any sense. Stupid. So I had to renege on that thought. I mean, to me, and I had to realize that would be almost as foolish as finding some cheap real estate property in Baltimore or in the south side or west side, or hell, really any side of Chicago and any side of Detroit. I wouldn't do that. That's foolish. Like, yeah, it might be cheap to get this outhouse, but now I gotta sleep with one eye. I gotta sleep with one eye open, because the savages might come in, murder me, and take all my shit. And chances are they will, because that's what they do. And my ex city, my former city, is anything but the exception. It's the rule. So yeah, man, I think it was only a matter of time before I was gonna make a video concerning this, because like I said, I just happened to run into that report, and then I saw Tito's video that, I mean, his most recent uploaded video, as far as should we do anything as far as for the black community, when these savages, truth be told, are the very reason why so many people look at us, like I said, black men who are worth a damn, black men worth the salt. And off the bat, they're talking ghetto to us. They're talking trying to talk that mush mouth they're actually surprised and even threatened when they actually see us studying chemistry, studying foreign languages, outperforming them, because again, that defies the narrative that we're just these low IQ, African bushmen with IQs lower than that than what you'll find in sub-Saharan Africa, which unfortunately is very low. I mean, according to stats, which is probably why Africa is in the fucked up condition that it's in. I mean, how do you have a continent like Africa? And I know I'm running on a tangent, but how do you have a continent like Africa with all of those natural resources, despite years of colonization, of European colonization, still overflowing with resources, natural resources? But you got never mind in East Africa, where it ain't nothing but desert and shit, like places like Somalia and Ethiopia. Fuck, never mind in Djibouti. Never mind those fucked up places. But I mean, hell, even in parts of East Africa, like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe, over by the coastline. What's on the coastline? Fish. An overabundance of natural resources, of food, of mineral, of copper, of iron, of precious diamonds, precious stones. Yet you got fucking rebels, you got governments there that are just as corrupt as the rebels fighting them. You got kids up and down that big ass continent with pot bellies, not due to eating but due to starvation, and flies buzzing around their eyes and lips. I mean, just think of certain places in Africa like Cote d'Ivoire, and I'm trying to think of the best places of Africa like Cote d'Ivoire, or places that should be the best parts of Africa just by the default of them being by the fucking coast. I mean, hell, and look no further than Liberia. That fucking shithole. See, this is something that I had to learn, and I know I'm kind of going on the rant and the tangent, but I had to learn this a long time ago. Yes, white supremacy is real. Yes, racism is real, but there is something wrong with the mind of the Negro. And you look at Haiti, you look at, like I said, the black communities of America, you look at the black communities of Latin America, you look at any part of this country where there's a quote-unquote diaspora of black people, be it Jamaica, be they English speaking, be they Dutch speaking, be they French speaking, be they Spanish speaking, be they African speaking, or be they African language speaking. Like I said, from Burundi on throughout the Congo, on throughout Somalia, you are going to find a race of people who simply have no understanding of how to rule the dwelling, in which they're in. And with all that, you're going to find violence, you're going to find corruption, you're going to find what we refer to as black on black crime, bunch of niggas, wild niggas just killing each other, shooting each other, hacking each other to bits and pieces. Corruption out the ass. Sanctions put on them by the European powers, by which they get to extract resources that aren't even native to their Europe. How does this happen? That would be like, because I used to when I was a kid, I was a big I was kind of like, by my own definition, like a mineralogist. I love rocks. I love precious stones. And I love digging into the earth. I love playing with the earth. So to me, that would be like, me having diamonds in my own backyard, and some white man, which, iconically enough, I lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly white at the time. It's overrun by these Section 8 niggas now. But it was predominantly white at the time, and that to me would be like my next door neighbor, who was and I was cool with this guy. I'm pretty sure, he's been long gone, God rest. He was actually he was my next door neighbor. Was actually, not only did he fight in World War II, he was actually on Pearl Harbor. So, I mean, how's that for a story? But that would be like him. And like I said, I'm pretty sure, with all the fucked up shit people say about, white people as a whole being racist, I'm pretty sure this man didn't have a racist bone in his body. And he was old school. I mean, if he was a racist, if he was a white supremacist, he could have fooled me. This man could have easily fooled me. If he had anything to do with the Klan or anything like that. But, just metaphorically speaking, that would be like him coming over to me and extracting and demanding that I give him a diamond that I found in my own backyard, in my own territory. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm not completely savvy as far as the entirety of the politics of it, but at the end of the day, I'm just looking at a bunch of Africans who are basically giving over their resources to this European so that he can keep so that they can keep their economies afloat. Which hasn't been going so well for the vast majority of the Europeans, by the way, because, I mean, Europe doesn't have too many natural resources. And since many of these nations have stopped colonizing, stopped colonization, it was only a matter of time before they ran out. So of course, a lot of these countries throughout Europe are going to shit. But I mean, make it make sense, y'all. I mean, that all of that serves to point out. And it's funny that I bring up my neighbor, because my neighbor was aware of my affinity for precious stones. And I remember one time, it was either sometime during the holidays. It probably wasn't even during the holidays. I think, just for the sheer hell of it, my next door neighbor, my dad gave me. He gave this book to my dad, and my dad gave it to me, and it was basically a book on fossils. Because again, I was always enamored with the earth. I was always enamored with science. I mean, given the right kind of education, given the right kind of educational path, I probably would have been a geologist. Or at the very least a mineralogist. But that's neither here nor there. Because that natural curiosity that is supposed to be in all children, but that's something that the community goes out of its way to destroy in their children, and they set them on this path of, again, stealing, dope dealing, fighting, competing for the very scraggle daggles that shame them if they don't present themselves as anything other than a Pookie and Ray Ray and Tupac, and won't give a damn about your ass, and will leave you hanging high and dry if you find yourself with a 0.13 grade point average. Because they'll probably tell you because you're doing better than half your student body that you must be acting white. Shit. Yeah, motherfucker, up here acting white and shit. Got your 13. I know you ain't trying to get no one. I know you ain't trying to get no 1 point grade point average. Shit, up here trying to pass with a D average. They're like, yeah, y'all through. Y'all are through. Y'all are done, man. Y'all are so. I mean, y'all are so fucking through. I don't know whether to laugh at you or. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. But I tell you what I'll do, Negro. I'll just laugh. If I feel the need to cry, I'll laugh to keep from crying. How about that? Because I mean, it would be this would be a situation where hell, I'm actually thinking you would actually have to cry to keep from laughing, because it's one of those things where you're so fucked or they're so fucked it's funny. Because like I said, I was in the shit. I was in that bullshit, fighting it with my mind. Because it's not like I have any kind of military force to, again, trump white supremacy. That's something that the Most High himself is going to have to do. And it seems like with me, to me, it seems like with the coronavirus, that was just one of the things that the Most High has used, and further plagues are going to come down the line. But in the meantime, my obligation, my goal is to fight this and fight ignorance, fight poverty with the tools that I have, and none more so than this one tool that the Most High gave me, my brain, the mind. It takes me back one time. I know I'm being a little long-winded. I promise I'll get off. But one time I was at FedEx, and you had this Shine was actually an Arab. I mean, she was a black American, but I mean, not an Arab. I'm sorry. I meant to say Muslim. It was a Muslim Shine. And right in, I had to have been like 19, maybe even 20 years old at the time. And this woman had the nerve to tell me, one of these old niggas, as Jason Black calls them, had the nerve to tell me that God gave me a mouth, so I should use it. And here's the thing when it comes to the Shine. What the Shine doesn't understand is that yes, God gave us mouths, but He also gave us brains. He gave us a brain so that we could, and the fact that the brain controls the mouth and other bodily functions, which one do you think should be prioritized, the mouth or the brain? And from there, that's clearly a rhetorical question. I'm gonna just leave it at that. And God help you, Negroes. I remember. It seems so strange, because my dad, when I was a kid, because I was at a point and stage when I was a teenager where my priorities were kind of fucked up, because all I gave a fuck about was video games, and and even then I was keeping my grades in a A, B, C, level. And my dad would have these discussions with me where he was up here talking to me the way he should have been talking. I would like to think he should have been talking to you Negroes in this way, where I was just headed for a path of self-destruction, and there was nothing that I wanted to do about it. Well, I guess that's the message that I'm giving to y'all. And except my message comes with a little more hopelessness, and by which I say y'all are fucked. Y'all are just fucked. It is what it is. And now I'll get off, and I'll catch y'all in the next vid. I'm out.